We're now on our way to the third part of our trip. The first part was in Berlin, 3 days and 3 nights to visit Judah's sisters. The second part was in Hiddensee for another 3 days or so for a class reunion of my 1943 class in Antlam. And we are now going to leave Hiddensee and are going to use a ferry in order to get to the main island of Ruegen. This is the last look at the island of Hiddensee. Now you probably know that Hiddensee is a very, very small island, and there are no cars allowed, and we used this island to have our last class reunion of my class of 1943 in Antlam. So, and here they are. These are some of my class buddies and their wives, and they're waving goodbye while we sit on the ferry. It's sort of a sad moment because this is the last goodbye. I'm sure we're not going to see any of them again, and we're not going to see the island of Hiddensee either. It was a very nice experience, and we enjoyed it a great deal, but everything has to come to an end. This is a map of the island of Ruegen. You can see the island of Hiddensee way over to the left where the lighthouse is. But from Hiddensee, from the town of Witte, we're going over to Schaprode, which is also on the map, and it's adjoining Hiddensee, and you can see that it's a very short ferry ride. And at Schaprode we were taking a bus and go via Bergen, which is in the middle of the island, all the way to the other coast, to the town of Sellin, where we will be spending 8 nights. And this is our hotel. It is called the Hotel Waldfrieden, and I booked it on the internet, not knowing what I was getting, of course, but to some extent. But I had researched it pretty well, and it turned out to be a wonderful place. And you can actually see our balcony over the, well, you see the little porch, and above the porch you see 2 windows, and to the left of that, that was our balcony. And we had a suite rather than a room, which I had expected. And we were very well off, and they were treated beautifully. It was a great hotel. We really enjoyed it. And this is another view from the street. The street is the Wilhelmstrasse. Wilhelmstrasse is the main street in Sellin, and it consists of nothing but restaurants and shops, and it's a wonderful little place. And then the street leads you directly to the ocean, to the Ostsee. And like many of the buildings in Sellin, there was a great deal of neglect during the Russian occupation, and so some of these buildings actually didn't exist any longer. This is a picture of the way that this particular hotel looked many, many years ago, back in the 20s. But the restructuring and the rebuilding has to be done in exactly the same fashion. You have to rebuild them to the standard of those days, and the look has to be the same, and they are really very insistent on it. And they've done a very, very good job with this particular hotel in that respect. This here is a picture showing you the construction while it was underway, and you can see how far they had to go. They went right down to the very bare walls and started all over again, and they did it in the old style. You can see even the tower was gone and was rebuilt. This here was our bedroom, very comfortable. We had a very nice bathroom as well, big closets, and instead of getting just a room, as I mentioned before, we ended up getting a suite for the same price. And this is the other room of the suite. Wasn't very elaborate, but you can see our suitcases are out of the way this way, and this was an emergency bed if we wanted it, or we could take a snooze in the afternoon. One of us could stay there, the other one could be out on the balcony, and that brings up another point. As you can see, it's a great balcony looking right out on the main street on Wilhelmstrasse, and I will give you a panoramic view of Wilhelmstrasse in a minute. This is a view from the balcony of the Wilhelmstrasse, and I'm going to show you the panoramic view by showing you a little video of the street next. A view of Wilhelmstrasse, and you can see the arrow points to our hotel with the little red tower, and the length of the street is just filled with restaurants and shops, and it's just very interesting to walk down this way. And at the end of it you come to the sea bridge. The Sellin is famous for the sea bridge. When you first come to Ruegen, you get a so-called Kurkarte. It's a sort of an ID that every tourist gets, and it entitles him to free transportation on these kind of trains and on other trains as well. So there are all kinds of fringe benefits with that little ID card. This is the famous Racing Roland. A Racing Roland can manage to get up to 33 kilometers an hour, so you can practically walk next to it. It's a narrow gauge railroad. It does cost money, but it's a way of getting from one little town to another, besides using the bus. This here is the sea bridge, for which Sellin is famous, and you can see it's a long bridge way out into the water. And you see restaurants out there, and when you go through the restaurants on the other end, you go all the way to the very tip of it. This is the famous diving bell in Sellin. You can get into this bell, and I think 20 some odd people can get into it at a time. It costs €8, and you will go down about 5 meters, and then you're about 1 meter off the bottom, and you can observe what's going on at the bottom. And there's also a lecturer who will explain everything. Just another view of the beach, and you see some people walking down there. You see a kiosk where they sell tickets for these chairs that you can rent, and there's lots of sandy beach, and it's going all the way from one end to the other, so miles and miles of it. At the top left, do you see the little elevator? It's that box with a green line across it. That's for people who don't want to walk down, or people who have wheelchairs or something of that nature. And next I will show you a little slide, a video slide, seeing a bit of movement on the beach. But you can see the beach going a long ways around. This is the view from the bridge, and you can see the staircase, and you can see the elevator next to it. It's kind of forbidding. It's really a very steep set of stairs. This is the view from the bridge, and you can see a little seagull sitting on that pole. I don't know if you recognize it, but in the back you see the cliffs, and it's a beautiful view. Miles and miles of wicker chairs in both directions, and you can rent those anywhere. You can rent them in stores, you can rent them on the beach, you can rent them on different locations. It looks like fine sand like in Pensacola, Florida, but it isn't quite. We found out the hard way. But this, you can walk on this sand on this beach all the way from one end of the island to the other. It's really quite an interesting experience. as we found out the hard way. Now here's Jutta walking on the beach, thinking it's like Pensacola, as I mentioned, but it certainly isn't. It's very rough, and if you're not used to walking without your shoes on, it certainly hurts. And you can almost hear her saying, ouch, 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 with each step that she's taking. So it's certainly time for a rest, don't you think? Nice blanket, a little bit of shade, and the shoes off, and try to make the feet feel comfortable. And I'm trying to keep up with her. Now, of course, I'm 2 years older than she is, or at that time I was 3 years older. You know, it takes a couple more months before I catch up, and it's before she catches up, and it's going to be 2 years. But I'm resting too. I look so relaxed, don't I? I'm so glad not to step on this lousy sand that is so rough. So naturally we'll have to reward ourselves with coffee, and coffee in Germany is always fantastic. It's really very, very good. And then we're going to ride back with this little train. Again, that's one of the bonuses and the advantages of this Kurkarte, of this ID that we have, that we can do that. And so we're waiting for the train to come to a stop, and we'll take the next one or the next one. They come all the time. And I'll show you a little slideshow what it looks like when that train runs right smack through the restaurant. Typical house on Ruegen with a thatched roof. And they look so pretty, and they're so nice and cool in the summer and warm in the winter. But they are dangerous because of lightning hits, and so they need lightning rods. A little town square in one of the small villages on the island. It's typical. The cars are parked there. There are benches everywhere you go. There are benches for people to sit down. You see a folded umbrella in the back. That's probably a restaurant. And then there's a barber shop and a bakery. Bakeries are everywhere, and of course the bread is fantastic. The same little square is seen from another angle. That's where the umbrella is. You can see it there, and that's outside of a restaurant. It's called a Dorfkrug, which means like it's a bar, a village bar. And then there seems to be a photo shop here, and typical. This is you find this all over the place. One of those wicker chairs that you can rent at the beach. But notice something else. This is outside of a store somewhere. You see the two bowls on the bottom? Those are for dogs. They're full of water, and so a lot of people have dogs, and when they come by, they let their dog drink there. For someone with a sweet tooth like myself, this was a restaurant that was made to my specifications. The crepes that you can get with sugar, without sugar, with chocolate, with all sorts of nice things, Nutella and whatnot, and strawberries and apple sauce and whatnot. And then you had pizzas in there, and you had spaghetti, and you see the prices, and the prices look somewhat reasonable, but don't kid yourself. These prices are in euros, and when you convert that, you have to add 1.5 times that in order to come up with dollars. So this is not cheap. Restaurants galore. These are pork cutlets, and with French fries it's $6.50, and with additional mushrooms it's going to come to $7.50. But you find these all over the place, and you see there's one right behind it. That's another restaurant with their menu on the outside. Here they advertise a cup of coffee and a cream cheese cake. And another one, and this has a little play on Einstein. This is a two-stein, and it's E equals mc squared. That's the famous formula of Einstein. So this restaurant is called Two-Stein, and it also shows what is offered. And if you can read German, again, it's pork fillet and pork cutlets again, and pepper sauce, which means it's a pepper sauce, and rosemary potatoes, and salad, and it comes to $9.90, which is €10, which really comes to $15. Another chance to bone up on your German. Well, there is little things for the kids or elderly people can always have less of a volume, and this is very important. I wish we had more of that here in our country, because as older people you just don't want as much anymore, and you get these huge monstrous portions. Well, there they have them too, but they also have special ones and for less money for children and for seniors as well. This one shows a menu for the kids on one side and desserts on the other. Now, desserts is another thing. Of course, I got the sweet tooth, so obviously I'm in heaven here. Now, this was market day, and so you see all the vendors with their mobile shops coming up and selling all kinds of goodies, from blueberries to strawberries to apples to you name it, cheeses and whatnot. Here we see the racing Roland arriving at a railway station. Two people sitting on a bench and waiting for him. You can take your time. It takes a lot of time to load it, and it takes a lot of time to ride it, and it's very comfortable. This to me was very interesting. It's something I had not seen before. It's an electric bicycle. It's specially made with an electric motor, and with that it helps you pedal. It doesn't actually pedal, but it makes pedaling easier for you. So if you go uphill, for instance, it's like you're pedaling on a normal road. It doesn't take any more effort than that. So it's quite interesting, but don't kid yourself. These bikes are awfully expensive. So the best way to get one of those is just to rent it from an agency, and there are bike rentals all over the place. And you'll get away with a good way of testing it. I unfortunately did not do it. We just didn't have enough time. It was only a few days, and we had so many other things to do, we didn't get around to it. I wish we had. Another rest period for the tired travelers. We just purchased some breadware or bakeware or whatever, and take a rest. In the back you see some bikes on a stand. You see bikes all over the place. This road is a shortcut through a park, beautifully maintained, and stores on one side and the park is on the other side. And again you see these signs outside where people are selling restaurants, a cafe, as you can see on the right side, with an umbrella in case it rains or the sun is too strong. And they're just sitting around drinking coffee or iced tea and having a little baked good on the side. Same idea, different stores. They're selling T-shirts, and they're selling souvenirs. It's a typical tourist store. And everything is well maintained, and as you can see, they're painting all the time. Everything has to be white and has to be spotless. And you can tell from the house in the back, for instance, and all the other houses, they all look immaculate. This girl owns a ceramic studio, and she makes all these items that you can see in the back there. And she was very interesting, showed us around, and of course we ended up buying something as well. And custom makes things as well. If you have something in mind, she will make it for you. An interesting little house on Wilhelmstrasse in Sellin, and if you go around the back, there's an entrance to a museum. Unfortunately, again, we didn't have enough time. I wish we had more time in Ruegen, but this is an old house that has Scandinavian connections. Obviously, you can see it from the decoration. And I wish, again, as we would have more time to look at it. This is the Pension Tatiana. It's a Russian restaurant and hotel. Very nice. We were inside, and we had a meal there, and it was very enjoyable. The Russians must have liked it there when they were occupying it, and so they set up some business down there, and they integrated very well into the community. This is one of the many small vehicles that businesses are using. In this case, it's a Gasthof, which is sort of a bar and restaurant, and they're using these tiny vehicles. This seems to be a Suzuki, if I'm not mistaken. We don't even get these vehicles here. We've never seen them. I was impressed by the size of it, and it seems for meal delivery would be ideal, or something of that nature. This is Yutta's great-nephew. In other words, he's the son of the daughter of her sister. And he's in the German Air Force. He's a major, and he flies as a navigator. But he's married to Dike. Now, you would think that she has a little beard here, but that's not really the case. What happened is that my lens got some dirt on it, and I didn't recognize that or realize that until much later. So please forgive me, but it was the only picture of her that was halfway decent, so maybe with some finagling I could remove that beard, but I thought it's kind of a conversation piece anyway. They made a tremendous detour and just to see us, and we are very moved by that. They came by a very special car, a camper, which I will show you a little bit later. Here's Dike again with Jutta and the little Tristan. Tristan is about 13 months old and is the pride of the family. So they're walking along the road on the this is on the main street in Wilhelmstrasse, and you see the stores on the left, and you see stores and restaurants on the right, as usual. Now, this picture was taken in the park, and there's a playground, and you see this looks like an old a pirate ship maybe, and they have swings and they have all sorts of funny things in there, and kids from all over are coming to play. And of course we had to take Tristan there naturally. Little Tristan seems like he's ready to bawl any minute now. He doesn't look all that happy. This is on the boardwalk next to the diving bell. The happy parents with little Tristan again in front of the diving bell on the boardwalk. This is their Volkswagen camper. Now this camper is no longer being manufactured, but it's an ideal vehicle. The size is just perfect, and actually it's amazing what you can put into it. And look what they have on the outside. This is some sort of a waterboard on the side, and the roof is a solid roof. It is not one of those tent-like contraptions that they used to have in the older campers. But unfortunately, he would like to have an updated version of it, but they no longer make them. Same vehicle from the side. You can see the board, and you can see something on the back, and I will show you that in a minute. Under this cover are a couple of bikes, very well protected from rain, bad weather, and dust and whatnot. When we walked through the park, we saw a demonstration by the local fire department, lots of fire trucks and demonstrations of how they extinguish fires and how they attempt rescue, etc. Here's a teacher lecturing the kids on how to go about extinguishing fires. They all have to wear helmets and uniforms, and it looks very official. Demonstration of an old fire engine. Remember the old pumpers? And there's the hose up in front. One of the kids is holding it. The firemen were setting a fire, and then they have a little bucket and a pump and the kid has to pump and extinguish the fire. And in order to make it better for you to see, I included a little video to show you the actual action. This is one of the buildings left over from the DDR time. DDR is the German Democratic Republic, which was set up by the communists or by the Russians originally. And you see the kind of buildings they were putting up. It's a beautiful, gorgeous building. Fits so well into the rest of them, doesn't it? And this is the front of the building. I think it's no longer occupied, and for a while it was used as a kindergarten, and it's right across from the railroad station. Now this thing was a tremendous surprise. It's nothing more than a railway station, and it's the last place in the world where you would think you could get something decent to eat. But you should see the inside, and you should get the food. It is absolutely indescribable. Of all the restaurants in town, this was probably the best. And I will show you samples of just a cake and a cup of coffee, how they presented it and what it looked like. And their regular meals were just as good and just as fancy. Now this is what I had. This is apple strudel with ice cream and cream of some sort. And this is also a bit of chocolate in the middle, but look at the presentation. Isn't it gorgeous? And it tasted wonderful. And the way they presented on these plates and with the sugar on top, it was just marvelous. And this was Yutta's serving. Look at the plate and look at the ice cream, the chocolate ice cream in the middle, surrounded by a coat of marzipan. And then there's this roll on top, and the way they presented was just very impressive for us, and we never expected that in this railway station. Now this is the dining car in the racing Roland, and you can see there's a stove that operates, and of course the benches are rather severe, and you see the curtains, and this is the dining car, mind you. And the curtains are actually linen curtains, white linen, clean as can be. Jutta was very impressed by these curtains, so I took a picture of just the curtains. They are linen, they're white, they're clean, and don't forget the engine pulling this kind of train is a steam engine, making all the noise and all the racket and all the smoke that you can possibly imagine. So I think it's a pretty steady job to keep these things clean. We had taken a trip in the racing Roland to Putbus, and on the way we saw this sign which indicated that there is a hunting castle in Granitz, which is a little town, and that's one of the sites worth seeing, I understand, but again, we didn't have enough time to do it. Here you see the carriage waiting for the next customer to take him up to the castle. It was a fairly steep hill, and they wanted to make it easier for people to get there. Cars cannot go up this hill, are not allowed to. Eventually we arrived in Putbus, and this is a very interesting town, and I will show you a lot of it, and you will see it has a gorgeous park, and this is the railway station in Putbus. Being a car buff, of course, I noticed different cars, and this particular one is, believe it or not, a Smart. You know, the Smart car, the ugliest car I've ever seen, that runs around in the States every once in a while, but this is their sport model, and that's a pretty snazzy looking car. I don't think it looks very bad. This here is the engine of the racing Roland, and you see there's a car attached to it. He's pulling it, seems backwards. A big house in Putbus. I don't really know the history of it, but it looked impressive. I probably should have gone by and read the sign, but there were so many cars coming, believe it or not, that I didn't want to go across the street just for that. Putbus' claim to fame is the park and also these white houses. Everywhere you look you find these snow white houses. It's a very impressive look. The center of the city is called the Circus, and that is just because a lot of white houses are placed in a circle around a center with a monument. I did not get a picture of that. Obviously I didn't take this picture, but this picture was taken to indicate and to show the actual center of town. It's a monument in the very center, and then there are these white houses all the way around it. It's called the Circus, and it's something you have to see in order to appreciate it. And the fact that these houses are all white, and that at the 200-year celebration they're going to have rose bushes in front of them, that's got to be quite a sight. This picture just shows the house under renovation. A lot of this kind of construction is going on in Putbus in order to make sure that all the houses conform to a certain norm and to a certain law. This year, Putbus has its 200th anniversary as a city, and for that reason the city decided to place 200 rose bushes throughout the city in front of all these white houses. Quite impressive even now, but when this is in full bloom, it ought to be overwhelming. Here you can see a close-up of one of those rose bushes. Just imagine 200 of them throughout the city. Boy, that ought to be something. Putbus has a historic watch and clock museum, and we went inside and checked it out, and in several rooms there were some very interesting displays. The man who owns this clock shop has collected these clocks over many, many years, and it's interesting to see that some of these clocks are from many different countries. As you can see, he was also into music boxes, and a tremendous variety of them are displayed in this museum. This music box is kind of unique, and it must have cost a fortune at the time, but look at the intricacy of it, and there are some dolls inside, and then there's that row of pins that plays like on a comb. Sound must not have been very good, but something unusual. We just wanted you to hear the sound of this particular wall clock. It's an interesting sound, and then you can see some movement inside. It's a little bit like those Swiss or Black Forest watches or clocks.
Ein schöner Klang.
We came by this group of people hanging around, and this is the one side. On the other side is a church-like building, and a lot of young people entering the main building. This you can see is again at the middle where the plaza is. And we asked what this was all about, and they said, well, it's a Jugendweihe. Now, Jugendweihe is a term that was used during the communist days in the DDR, in the German Democratic Republic, run by the communists, and it must have carried over. It's a replacement for a communion, and it's non-denominational. One of the main attractions in Putbus is the park. This is a very, very elaborate park. It's patterned after the typical British parks. And it used to be that there was a castle in the middle of the park, but the castle is no longer there. It was destroyed and finally was actually erased when it was impossible to rejuvenate this thing. So today we don't have the castle anymore, but we do have a huge park with lakes and with little museums and places where celebrations take place, and cafe houses and exhibit places and so on. This is a picture of the old castle that used to be in the park but is no longer there. It was razed after 1945, and it was the home of a duke. And another view of the park. In the back you see part of a building that is now a museum. One of the entrances to the park, as you can see, it's absolutely a gorgeous park, but this one is blocked off so automobiles won't go this particular route. This tree is over 1,000 years old. Just imagine, over 1,000 years. Another view of the same tree from another side. I believe this tree is called a mammoth tree. I've never heard the term before, but again, it's an ancient tree. Another one of those old-timers. Oh, by the way, I should explain the spot that you see in the middle of the tree. That is still a spot that I've had for a long time. Couldn't figure out what it was. Went to a photo shop and they told me they would have to send it in to get it repaired. And then I found out purely by accident that it was nothing more than a spot on the lens. And it took me a while to realize that, and then eventually I did remove the spot, and from then on it's clear. But you'll have to suffer through a few of these. A nice view of the park. It is endless. There's just so many different trees. Very interesting. If somebody is into trees, this would be the place to be. This, I believe, is the leftover of the castle, and you can see a lake. It's a beautiful view, but unfortunately not much is left of the castle. A wedding party is going on in the former stables, so nobody else can go in there for now, but they are serving food and they're celebrating the wedding. Next stop, Seaside Resort Binz. Very famous and been established, more than 200 years ago. Well, it turned out that Hannes Böttcher, one of my school chums, lives only a few miles from Sellin, where we are going to go, and so we thought, why not visit him? He invited us very nicely into his house, and we were able to see him and his wife. They live in an independent living facility. This is their living room and dining room. They also have a large kitchen. They also have a bathroom, and they're very well equipped, and they have a nice balcony and porch. And Hannes converted a bedroom into his office. You can see his computer, and you see a couch. So when he feels tired, he can lie down for a while, and he has a large window looking out on a huge porch. And this is the porch, or the balcony. See the big plants and chairs and tables, and it brings a lot of light into the dining room. And when you sit in one of those chairs, you look out on it looks like a lawn, doesn't it? Feels like you could go out and just walk along there. But it isn't really a lawn. It's the roof of a shopping center, of a market, like a Price Chopper or a Hannaford in our area, a large food store, and it's right next to the entrance to their building. And on the one side, and on the other side they have a bakery, and you can smell the fresh bread, and it's just a wonderful surrounding. And all around you see these lovely homes. And when you open the back door downstairs and you walk out, you walk into a lovely park, and you see this road on both sides of the flowers, and it goes all the way around, and you will see there's a big lake, and it goes around the lake too. And you walk by little statues and monuments, and it's just lovely all the way around, and it's for bikes and for pedestrians. They both have to accommodate each other. And you also come across this fountain, water spraying around the ball, and in the back you see the lake. And you have a chance to walk all the way around the lake. It's quite a large one, and it's just a lovely surrounding. And for an independent living facility to be located right there is incredible. And nice enough that they're in this beautiful surrounding area, but when you go the other way and you go a little bit to the left, you're in the middle of downtown Binz and the shopping area. And this is it, the shopping street. No cars, lots of restaurants, lots of boutiques and small stores. And if you go to the very end of this street, you arrive at the actual beach. This building is under historic conservation. It was erected in 1908, has of course seen a lot of deterioration, has now completely been renovated, and is one of the prides of Binz. It's called the Kur Hotel. Located next to the Kur Hotel, this particular one, the Strand Hotel, has been around for a long time as well and has also been completely refinished. And here is the third one, another hotel located in the same square. You can see there are four corners to this square, and there are hotels on all four of them. These are very expensive hotels, I'm sure, and they're very close to the beach. Some of them in the square, and some of them right down at the very beach. Another one of those free rides through the town. Again, you have to have the Kurkarte or the ID in order to be able to board this train. What else is new? Another menu. You can see something solid, something fine with fish, something for people who want snacks, and then of course there are the drinks. We took a little boat tour along the chalk coast, and I will let you look at some of those pictures on your own until I come to the very last one, which is the Königstuhl, and I will explain that to you. This here is the Königstuhl, or King's Throne, and of course there's a saga connected with it of a maiden and Störtebeker, who was a pirate, and you know these stories, a lot of gold being hidden in there by this pirate and guarded by a maiden who then, when he didn't come back because he was executed, led a terrible life and died eventually. On our way back from the King's Throne, we came by Sassnitz, and in Sassnitz you can see this submarine. It's a British submarine. Why it's there, I don't know, but people are allowed to go on board, so the Brits must have discarded this submarine. Next day we decided to take a bus trip to the upper part of the King's Throne. On the very part of the island there, you can go either by boat and see it from down below, or you can go by bus and you can see it from the top down. But we saw this weather chart. It's kind of a funny thing. It says there's a stone hanging from a chain, and if the stone moves, there is a storm. And if the stone is not moving, then you have no wind. And if the stone gets wet, then you have rain, you know, and stuff like that. This is the bus we took for our tour. It's called De Ruegen. This is a German accent for that particular area. The Ruegener is the proper name, but the Ruegen is the local accent. Okay, so we started our bus tour, and the first place we stopped at was the town of Prora. Now, Prora is just outside of Binz. Actually, I think it's part of the greater town of Binz, and it represents something unusual. This is a picture of the development, the way it was planned back in 1936 by the National Socialists. It was supposed to be a vacation spot for 20,000 workers at a time. They had 5 cruise ships, and the cruise ships were going to bring these workers to the facility where they would be able to rest for 2 weeks. They would have to bring nothing more than a toothbrush, and the state would supply everything else. They were planning, this is a 5-kilometer long town, and inside was a large meeting facility, meeting place, and then they were all apartments with direct access to the sea. Every one of the apartment inside of this development had actually a view of the ocean. And it never came to fruition. In 1939, when the war broke out, every construction was stopped, and I will tell you a little more about it in a minute. It is now called the KDF Museum, or this would mean KDF is an abbreviation for Strength Through Joy. That was an organization by the Nazis for the workers in different plants and all the plants, and they should be getting their vacations. And this was an organization, the head organization, that arranged all of this. Now there are lots of models in there, and I mean construction models of the way the town should have looked. And they tried to eliminate it and blow it up, and they only succeeded with one block and gave up on it. And then again, during the air time, the German or East German or Communist German army was staying there, and also later on the West German army, and the Russians were there for a while as well. And now it's a youth hostel at one time, and then it was a museum, and then it was broken up into different units and was sold to individuals. They don't really know what to do with it. It's a monstrosity. Here's another view of the monstrosities the way they look today. Not very pretty, and an awful lot of them. Actually, the entire length of the development, as I said, is 5 kilometers, which is about 3.5 miles or so. Can you imagine? I mean, one block after another, and how to organize all this, and how to make sure that all these people have a chance to get to the beach, and that they get their meals, and that they get the occasional meetings and a meeting hall, and they have dances and all those kind of things. Another view of this colossus, and you can see it goes on and on and on. It's not a very pretty sight, and too bad it never really was finished. This is the entrance to the museum. There's an East German soldier statue outside, so it reminds you of that. And then inside is a complete layout of what happened to this whole structure and this whole project over the years. At the time when it was initially started, and how Hitler got involved in the initial building phase, and then how it was abandoned, and then how the East Germans and the Russians and the West Germans moved in, and what it has become now. It's an interesting exhibit, I'm sure. We weren't inside because we didn't have enough time. They just kept driving to the next location, but I think it would be interesting to see. This was the entrance to the park above the Königstuhl. Beautiful trees on all sides, and a nice little walk, and a bit of climbing stairs, but other than that, it was very enjoyable. And then we eventually ended up above the Königstuhl. This little platform allowed you to step onto it and look over the cliffs onto the water. And it was a great view from up here. The day before we had been on the boat going around this area, and now we saw it from the top. Here we can see a stone with an inscription. It's called the Victoria view. It's Queen Victoria, who supposedly was there at one time and looked down on it, and down from there. Here you have 3 more views from the top. It's quite impressive. Leaving this area, we could see interesting landscapes, and here are farm buildings. They are nothing more than barns, and yet they're completely equipped with solar power. This farm is self-sufficient as far as electricity goes. Capricona was the northernmost point that we reached on the island. It's almost the very, very northernmost point, but there is one other area that we didn't get to. Near Capricona there are 3 lighthouses. This is one that during the Second World War was used in order to listen in on the British communications. And today it's a museum of some sort. And you see on the left the blue roofs are the roofs of a little train that was going from one lighthouse, from this one up here, which is now a museum, to the other 2 lighthouses, the twins. And here they are. They are now museums as well, and during the war they served as a radar station, and the area was owned or occupied by the German Navy. And these are 3 more views of the complex. You can see people waiting for the little train that's going between the lighthouses. And I will give you a short video clip to let you see the train in motion. One of the trains is parked here waiting for passengers. And horse-drawn covered wagons are also available and can be booked. And this particular one is just coming in with a load of guests to a wedding. You see the guests disembarking, rather unusual costumes as well. And here comes the bride, all decked out, looking beautiful. And in the background you can see the wagon she just arrived in. On the island of Ruegen, anytime you get out of a fairly large town, this is the kind of countryside that you will encounter. This is a fairly large road, and then of course you have the smaller roads that are not paved as well. Just a nice bit of countryside as seen from the train. We are now traveling to Berlin directly from Binz. This is a picture taken out of the train, and then you see that little smart vehicle next to us, and it has difficulty keeping up with us. So pretty soon we're going to lose them. This is a new bridge that was built just so that people can now travel from the island of Ruegen directly to Stralsund to get on the mainland. And from there, of course, we went on to Berlin. But the interesting thing about this, I'll show a little video after this one. You will see at the end of the video the typical allotment plots that people in big cities are getting outside of the city. So you go to any big city and you usually see these plots, and they are customized. People put a little house up, they have their television sets there, they have their chairs, and they go there for the weekend. Ja, ne? Ja, ich auch sagen, das wundert mich etwas. Der muss Diese doch zumindest ein Opening haben, ein Gate oder so. Und da sind wieder diese Plattenbauten, die auch so schön.
Hier ist einfach das schöne Aquarium.
Da wird er gleich anhalten.
Ach, das ist ein Auto mit Bikes oben. Das sieht funny aus.
Wow,
die Bikes
ja, das
alleine.
sieht crazy aus.
Das ist so funny. Die Bikes fahren alleine. Dann wieder ein Auto mit Bikes drauf. Aber das funny war, dass wir das Auto nicht sahen.
Ja. Schrebergärten. In Germany, you see a lot of poppies, and the poppies are growing wild. You can see them right next to the railroad line. And here at close-up, just look at them. Aren't they beautiful? They're all over. You see them everywhere. And this slide only has a meaning for me because the town of Anklam is nothing to brag about, but this is where I went to school many, many years ago. And back in 1943, the class of that year, the reunion for that class, we had at this trip. This was the reason for the trip in the first place. So for whatever it's worth, here is the main building in Anklam. And at the time when we were there, it looked a little bit better. And it's been run down by the East Germans, and from then on, Anklam has suffered a great deal. There's a lot of unemployment. It's one of the poorest towns in Germany. When we arrived in Berlin, we stayed for one night near the airport, and we used a taxi in the morning to get to the airport, and this is typical for the German taxis. This car is probably got at least a couple of 100,000 miles on it, and it's operated on gas. It's not using normal fossil fuels. This is the plane we're boarding. It's an Air Berlin. Now, Air Berlin used to be LTU, and LTU was a division of Lufthansa, so you could say that Air Berlin is a division of Lufthansa as well. And they had entrances in the front and in the back, and depending on where you were seated, you used either one of them. I'm a little surprised that we entered this one at the tarmac. This is, I don't quite remember that, but obviously that's what it was. Apparently we're ready for takeoff. The plane has been checked out, everything is go, and here we go. It's going to be an 8-hour flight from Berlin-Tegel to JFK in New York. And in New York, our daughter Dina will pick us up, and we'll stay over at her house for one night, and then we go back north in our own car, which we left there for a 3.5 hour trip, and that'll be the end of the journey. Now the next slide will really be a little video, and it'll be the actual landing at JFK. No, das heißt der Video geht.
Meine Damen und Herren, Sie sind auf dem JFK-Flughafen hier in New York gelandet. Dürfen wir Sie nur noch bitten, so lange angeschnallt sitzen zu bleiben, bis das Flugzeug die endgültige Parkposition erreicht hat. Kapitän Runge und die gesamte Besatzung sowie im Namen der Airline dürfen wir uns hier recht herzlich